Hello guys, welcome back to another YouTube video here today. And today we are going over my update on Bleed Cash. Now I have changed this build because I wanted to change it. I felt like it needed to change. It was dependent on glow to glow for damage, and I feel like that's not super the greatest for bleed procs. So we made some changes to the build, and it is a lot of fun now. It can proc some pretty good bleeds, and we're going to go over the guns that we are using. And so the Soul Temper, this is the star of the build. This is going to proc the best and biggest bleeds. And so will the Sunspot. This will proc some massive bleeds too. Now, on Soul and Subjugator, I recommend using the Crow Source. The Crow Source is just really good for down there. And then I recommend, getting the Lockjaw with Jacob's Ripper for the takedown. This is overall very nice for mobbing. This absolutely wreck enemies. Seconds and areas, and then we're also using the amp and rage rep kit, which is really nice. And then we're using the crit knife. You get more guaranteed crits, and plus this gives us harder proc bleeds because this will actually proc bleeds harder. And if you throw a crit knife during the bleed, it will even make the bleed even harder if you like to do that. That is a thing. And then power shot for the enhancement. So guns of order licensed parts gain 30% damage when firing maximum charge. So you get 29% gun damage and 58% more gun critical damage and assault rifle critical damage, which is really nice. Now you could run if you find one with sniper rifle critical damage, that would be even better. So you could proc your bleeds even harder. But this roll is really hard to find as it is. And then we're using the triple amp guardian angel, so we're always getting amp, and then we get one free revive every 300 seconds, which is nice for the takedown. And then we're using the crack gamer. We need to use this for bleed. This is overall very nice. We get way more critical hit damage with this. Plus, you get more critical damage overall, and plus pot and pause. And this also needs it for bleed. And then for the firmware, we're using 3 active fires. So you get 10% more weapon damage, 20% more weapon charge rate. When you're firing a charged weapon within 0.5 seconds of reaching full charge, get an increase of damage dealt by 100%, which is overall very nice. Projectile speed increased by 25%, and then the other one is high gun damage with 2 high calibers. This is overall very nice because high caliber is more competitive. And then onto the skill tree. So we're using 5 in charm bracelet, so you get 50% more skill damage and 20% skill damage per totem. This is benefit vigorous. So the more totems you throw, the more vigorous you do, which is really nice. So that's skill damage. And then we're using 5 in Lucky Robot, so you get 20% more extra skill cooldown rate. 3, Fortunate, so you get more elemental damage and more windfall chance. And then we're using 1 in Double Teams, so you get an extra augment. And then 1 in Luckless, so you get a bit more damage to jinx enemies, plus your axe skill can also jinx enemies when you throw it nearby, which is really important here. And then we're using 1 in Cursed Bones. When axe skill to an enemy, that becomes an enemy, becomes a jinx. So when your axe skill damages an enemy, the enemy becomes jinx, which is really nice. And then it gets more damage too. And then we're using 5 in Tormented, so you get 20% more critical damage and an additional 30% critical damage against jinx enemies. 4 in Graveyard Shift, so you get active skill cooldown rate per jinx enemy, which is really nice. And then we're using 1 in Call, so you get Cash activates his active skill and his bone totems automatically critically jinx enemies. And then we're using 1 to can't stop winning, so we can proc Windfall all the time, and this is really nice. And then 2 in Turn of Fate, so you get lifesteal of damage dealt, which is a lot of lifesteal because we are doing a lot of damage. And then for the augments, we're using 5 of life, so we have 4 totems. But then we're using the Mighty 9. So when we shoot our guns, we can proc Groundbreaker, which is really cool. Then we're using Dirty Dozen, so when we throw our dice, we gain fortune stacks, also really nice. And then we're using 2 in Fast Hands, so you get 12% for low speed. 1 in Insurance, so you get more fortune stacks and more shield recharge rate and less recharge delay, which is really nice. And then we're using 2 in Alchemy, so you get more elemental effect chance. 2 in Go for Broke, so you get 2% more additional fortune stacks when you get an additional fortune stack, which is really nice. 5 in Trick Takers, so you get 35% more elemental damage. 1 in Late Scratch, whenever Cash attempts to enter Windfall, he fails, and then it gains that fortune stack. Instead, whenever Cash gains an additional augment slot, so you get more augments, which is really good. And then Rush Shadows, this can proc Groundbreaker, so you don't need skills. You can put one extra and go for broke if you'd like. And then we're using 4 in Ace of the Hole. You get 28% more gun damage, 2.8% more gun damage per fortune stack, which is really good. 5 in High Rollers, so you get gun damage to 30% more action skill cooldown. And then 5 in Vigorous, which is really important, so you get more bonus damage or damage dealt of a random element or damage with your guns when your action skill damages an enemy. Then we're using 1 in Daily Buff. Whenever Cash gains a stack of fortune, he restores his action skill cooldown. And then for specializations, we're using the best defense, tripwire, riddle you this, and groundbreaker. Now we're only using this for the Hemdoff. If you want to use it, you don't want to use the Hemdoff, switch to overkill so you get more kill skill. This is just really nice for the takedown. That is about it for this build video. Hope you guys enjoyed this build video. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe. Leave a comment down below what else you guys want to see next. I really appreciate everybody watching the videos. It's been actually amazing. Everybody watching these videos has been amazing. And the support has been insane. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.